черешеньку на дворі, там, де стояв із милою до зорі. Черешенька ще, хой! Черешенька прийметься, а милая за другими дивиться. Черешенька ще, хой! Черешенька прийметься, а милая за другими дивиться. Ой, ходив він із милою лісочок, виплітав її з фіалок віночок. А тепер куди піду, лиш із верби лист найду, і ще її я любити не буду. А тепер куди піду, лиш із верби лист найду, і ще її я любити не буду. Попід небо сизий сокіл літає, вже 3 рочки, як милої немає. Ой, дівчино, перебач, я сміюся, а ти плач, як постелиш, так ся виспиш, говорять. Ой, дівчино, перебач, я сміюся, а ти плач, як постелиш, так ся виспиш, говорять. Ой, дівчино, перебач, я сміюся, а ти плач, як постелиш, так ся виспиш, говорять. Ой, дівчино, перебач, я сміюся, а ти плач, як постелиш, так ся виспиш, говорять. Як постелиш, так ся виспиш, говорять.
From Edmonton, that was the Euphoria Band with Черешенька, the cherry tree. Добрий вечір, шановні радіослухачі, та вітаю вас всіх на радіопередачу «Наш Холос» радіо українського коріння, котра подається вам на багатомовній радіостанції AM1320 CHMB у місті Ванкувері і по мережі PCJ Радіо Міжнародному. При мікрофоні Павліна Макварі, дякую, що рішили перебути зі мною наступну годину. Hello there, and welcome to Nash Holos Ukrainian Roots Radio, coming to you here on AM 1320 CHMB Vancouver and in international syndication on PCJ Radio International. I'm your host, Paula Demchik-Macquarie, Pukrinska Pavlina. We've got a great program lined up for you. We've got Ukrainian Jewish heritage and another look at a feature we did last year on klezmer music. I'm a great fan of it, and I hope you are too, and thought it was worth repeating. As well, we're going to listen again, since it's still summertime, and yeah, it's a good time to relax and hear stories. So we have Saskatchewan storyteller Linda Mikolayenko with a Ukrainian folktale, The Stolen Postole. As well, we'll have our usual proverb of the week, other items of interest, and great Ukrainian music. And coming up next is a group from Ukraine. This was recorded back in the Soviet times. It is a group called Червона Рута, and the song is Чечері.
розчеши-ми кучері, 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 розчеши-ми кучері, кучері, кучері.
Я би тобі чесала, 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 якби мамка не знала, не знала, не знала, якби мамка не знала, не знала, не знала. Мамка буде дивити, 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 якся буду ганьбити, 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 якся буду ганьбити, ганьбити, ганьбити. Ой, Марічко, люблю тя, люблю тя, люблю тя, зариш мені когутя, 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 зариш мені когутя, когутя, когутя.
Запіє, 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 ставай горі, Марія, 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 ставай горі, Марія, Марія, Марія.
Ой, Іванку, пропав вись, пропав вись, пропав вись, чи на цукор не дав вись, не дав вись, не дав вись, чи на цукор не дав вись, не дав вись, не дав вись.
Волю ти я пропити, 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 як ти цукор купити, 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 як ти цукор купити, купити, купити.
Ой, Марічка, чичері, 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 розчеши-ми кучері, 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 розчеши-ми кучері, кучері, кучері.
Моє доле, чом мовчиш, відгукни, ніжним співом ти до мене вернись. Світле слово відпусти у блакить, і воно до мене мить долетить. Світле слово відпусти у блакить, і воно до мене мить долетить, і воно до мене мить долетить. Любиш чи не любиш, відгадай по-людськи, знайдеш чи загубиш, нам повідають роки, сонце у долоні холодить без почуття, знайшов у полоні, в тебе я на все життя. Я чекаю, ти мене лиш поклич, буйним вітром полечу, як із ніч. Світом вишний обійму досхочу, озові збоянь, як не звичу. Світом вишний обійму досхочу, озові збоянь, як не звичу. Озові збоянь, як не звичу. Любиш чи не любиш, відгадай по-людськи, знайдеш чи загубиш, нам повідають роки, сонце у долоні холодить без почуття, знайшов у полоні, в тебе я на все життя. Любиш, загубиш. на все життя.
And from the eastern seaboard of the United States, that was Oля Chudoba Fritz from her CD Hadai, Remember, and a song called Lubish Czy nie lubisz, Do You Love Me or Not? And moving north across the border back into Canada to Toronto, to be specific. And our next group is called Trio Lira from Toronto from their CD Razom, which means together. And here they are now with Tijmena Pitmanula, You Deceived Me.
Казала понеділок, підем разом по барвінок. Я прийшов, тебе нема, підманула, підвела. Ти казала у вівторок, поцілуєм разів 40. Я прийшов, тебе нема, підманула, підвела. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму взяла. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму взяла. Ти казала у середу, підем разом по череду. Я прийшов, тебе нема, підманула, підвела. Ти казала у четвер, підем разом на спацер. Я прийшов, тебе нема, підманула, підвела. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму звела. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму звела. Казала у п'ятницю, підем разом на вулицю. Я прийшов, тебе нема, підманула, підвела. Ти казала у суботу, підем разом на роботу. Я прийшов, and you weren't there, підманула, підвела. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму взяла. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму взяла. Ти казала у неділю, погуляєм на весіллю. Я прийшов, тебе нема, підманула, підвела. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму взяла. Ти ж мене підманула, ти ж мене підвела. Ти ж мене молодого з ума з розуму взяла.
And now for a look at Ukraine's rich Jewish heritage, then and now, brought to you by the Ukrainian Jewish Encounter based in Toronto, Ontario. Dave Terrace, the King of Klezmer, by Yael Strom, chronicles the life and work of a Ukrainian-born man who became known as the Benny Goodman of klezmer. He was the individual most responsible for the development of a uniquely American style of Jewish klezmer music. From 1925 until his death in 1989, Dave Terrace set the standard. Well-known jazz legends such as Charlie Parker and Miles Davis studied his technique. Yael Strom is himself an accomplished klezmer musician and historian. He is credited as a pioneer in the revival of klezmer. Strom had already published several books on the genre when, by happenstance, he ran into a great-grandson of Dave Terrace in New York. That encounter inspired Strom to write a biography of the iconic musician. The book contains many touching anecdotes by family members, musical colleagues, and protégés. There is newly discovered biographical material, rare photos, the musical scores of 28 of Terrace's original klezmer tunes arranged for violin and clarinet, a glossary of Yiddish terms, a bibliography, detailed footnotes, and discography, plus a copy of a handwritten note by Terrace a few years before he passed away. Dave Terrace was born Dave Tarasyuk in 1897 in Ternivka, a shtetl in what is now modern-day Ukraine, located about 200 miles south of Kiev and 19 miles southwest of Uman, where Rebbe Nachman of Breslov is buried. Terrace was a third-generation klezmer musician. He learned his craft from his father and played at weddings for Jews and non-Jews in and around Ternivka. He even played in the Tsarist army up to World War I. That gig not only kept him out of the trenches, in the end it saved his life. When pogroms broke out, foreshadowing even worse devastation and horror to come with the Holocaust, Terrace managed to escape to the west with his wife and some family members. Sadly, many of his relatives were left behind. Those that survived endured much hardship, including deportation to Uzbekistan through Siberia and Kazakhstan. Life was hard for klezmer musicians in the USSR and often dangerous. Meanwhile, Terrace and his wife arrived in America in 1920. He got a job working in his brother-in-law's fur shop because at first he didn't think he was good enough to make a living as a musician in America. But within 3 years, he was supporting his growing family playing his clarinet and would go on to become the most acclaimed klezmer in the United States. During his career, he made hundreds of recordings on labels such as Columbia and RCA Victor. He frequently played for Yiddish theater, resorts, social clubs, vaudeville and movie theaters, and of course countless weddings and other Jewish communal events. The emergence of a new technology called radio allowed Terrace and other klezmer to reach a broader audience. By the end of the 1920s, Jewish radio programming and Yiddish music were being heard on several major radio stations in the New York area. During the harsh Depression years, Terrace worked many different venues, including in resort hotels in the Catskill Mountains. The area came to be known as the Borscht Belt because klezmer and Yiddish swing were so popular there. By the end of the 1930s, Dave Terrace had become known throughout the Yiddish theater and klezmer world as the best and most reliable clarinetist. When World War II broke out, he did another army stint. He was commissioned by the National Guard of New York to lead its military band. But the end of the war brought with it the end of the big band era and the beginning of a new American music scene. Despite that, Terrace remained one of the few musicians to still record and play actively in the niche he had carved out for himself, gigs in the American Jewish community and as a session musician, recording, radio, and teaching music. His audience was dwindling, however. The trauma of the Holocaust turned survivors and their descendants away from the painful memories and associations of their East European roots. With the birth of the new state of Israel in 1948, American Jews still in touch with their roots began to identify with a more modern Israeli culture. But in the 1970s, Dave Terrace was rediscovered by musicians and researchers Andy Statman and Walter Zev Feldman. In 1978, they organized a tour featuring Terrace and other klezmorim and Yiddish singers. The project also produced a studio recording titled Music for the Traditional Jewish Wedding. This would be Terrace's last studio effort. The tour was a huge hit with seniors who recalled the heyday of klezmer, but it also attracted a smaller crowd of young musicians who would form the nucleus of a revival of Yiddish culture. In 1984, Dave Terrace was honored by the National Endowment of the Arts with a National Heritage Fellowship. He died on February 12, 1989, in Oceanside, Nassau County, New York, leaving a daughter, a son, and 7 grandchildren. His great-granddaughter Stephanie Terrace is now the keeper of the family klezmer legacy. Dave Terrace influenced several generations of klezmer musicians and will no doubt continue to influence generations to come. Dave Terrace, The King of Klezmer by Yale Strom is available at Amazon and other booksellers. The musical excerpts you heard were all recordings by Dave Terrace. Apologies for my Yiddish pronunciation. We began and ended with Chusen Kala Mazel Tov, a traditional Jewish wedding march. Then Zefki Ich bin deiner Shir, a couple's set dance similar to a quadrille or square dance. Galatas, grandfather's song. Freilachs, another traditional Jewish dance. The word means happy, and this song was titled Freilachs Veseli. A Pastuch's Cholem, or a shepherd's dream, from his 1978 recording, Music for the Traditional Jewish Wedding. You can find the music of Dave Terrace also on Amazon and on iTunes. I'm Pavlina, producer and host of Nash Holos Ukrainian Roots Radio. Thanks for listening. Until next time, Shalom. Ukrainian Jewish Heritage is brought to you by the Ukrainian Jewish Encounter based in Toronto, Ontario. To find out more about their work, visit their website and follow them on Facebook and Twitter. Transcripts and audio files of this and earlier broadcasts of Ukrainian Jewish Heritage are available at their website, ukrainianjewishencounter.org, as well as at the Nash Holos website, www.nashholos.com. that was Yale Strom, American klezmer musician who happened to also author the book that was just reviewed, Dave Terrace, the King of Klezmer. And that song he performed for you there was Svalava Kozachok, Ukrainian folk dance.
This is CHMB, AM 1320, Vancouver.
Coming up next, Sluhai from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Oiupoli Kalena. In the field, there is a kalena, a cranberry tree.
Там дівчина стояла, 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 чумбарики стояла, 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 чумбарики стояла. Світ калини ламала, 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 чумбарики ламала, 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 чумбарики ламала. Тапочечки складала, тапочечки складала, 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 чумбарики складала, 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 чумбарики складала. Хлопців моргала, тайна хлопців моргала, 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 чумбарики моргала, 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 чумбарики моргала. Чумбарики, чубчики, калина. Чумбарики, чубчики, калина.
Thanks to the foresight and generosity of its donors, the Taras Shevchenko Foundation has been investing in the future of the Ukrainian-Canadian community for over 50 years. Since 1963, the Taras Shevchenko Foundation has been funding initiatives that strengthen our Ukrainian-Canadian identity and enhance our Ukrainian-Canadian cultural heritage. These include fine and performing arts and arts groups, museums, cultural centers, education, as well as authors, journalists, and the Ukrainian-Canadian media, including this program. The foundation strives to become the premier not-for-profit foundation in Canada which acknowledges the Ukrainian-Canadian community as a fundamental component of Canadian society. Nash Holos listeners are encouraged to support this vision through continued donations into the future. To apply for grants, make a donation, or for more information, visit ShevchenkoFoundation.com.
Welcome to Beyond the Blue Mirror, a series of programs that celebrates the rich Ukrainian oral tradition. Each program features a folk tale or legend, as well as a related real-life story, enhanced with traditional and contemporary music. My name is Linda Mikolayenko. Thank you for joining me. The Stolen Pistolet. Bondachuk was up to no good. This rich farmer was always plotting ways to get the poor peasants to work on his land for next to nothing. And now he had his eyes set on Danilo, a big, strong man. But how to enlist him? He stewed and he schemed and he twirled the ends of his long black mustache until he came up with a plan. And then he sent one of his servants to steal something from Danilo. In the dark of night, the servant crept into Danilo's hut. Careful not to wake the sleeping man, he tiptoed about, looking for something worth stealing. But Danilo was so poor, he couldn't find anything. All night long he looked, and finally, just before dawn, he realized that Danilo had no real valuables, and so he quickly grabbed a pair of pistolets, a pair of shoes, and ran out the door. In the morning, Danilo awoke, yawned and stretched and rubbed his eyes, but when he reached for his pistolets, well, they were gone. He scratched his head and tried to remember where he had left them, but he was certain that he had put them beside his bed as he always had. Outside, the frost lay thick on the ground. Winter was on its way, and he wondered how he would survive without a pair of shoes. As he sat there, suddenly the door to his hut burst open, and in walked Bondachuk, the wealthy farmer who lived nearby. "Why so glum, Danilo?" he said. "Why shouldn't I be sad?" replied Danilo. "Some scoundrel has stolen my pistolet. Winter is on its way, and I don't have a cent to buy a new pair." "Oh, that is indeed terrible." Bondachuk pretended to feel sorry for him. "But don't worry. I'll buy you a pair of shoes, and you can pay me back by working on my farm for a year." Well, Danilo thought this was ludicrous. But what could he do? He had no choice. So he went to work for Bondachuk. Day in and day out he slaved, but Danilo was a big man, and the landlord fed him so little that he was always hungry. Finally, one day, when he felt he just didn't have the strength to continue, he went to Bondachuk and he complained, "How can I work when all day long my stomach aches and rumbles so?" Again, Bondachuk pretended to feel sorry for him. "I'll tell you what, my friend. I'll get my wife to give you a boiled egg every morning. And that way you'll have the strength to continue to work, and by the end of the year you will have paid off your debt. All right?" Danilo agreed and went back to work. For an entire year, Danilo worked like a dog. He plowed and he planted and he threshed just to pay for a pair of shoes. And though he was still hungry, That boiled egg did help to give him the strength he needed to continue working. Now, by Danillo's sweat, the farmer prospered with bountiful crops and a rich harvest. And when the year was almost up, he really wanted to keep Danillo working for him, and so one day he called him to his house. "So you finally paid for the shoes," said Bondachuk, stroking his long black mustache. "That's right," said Danillo. "And did you get a boiled egg to eat every morning?" said Bondachuk as he furrowed his bushy eyebrows. "Yes," replied Danillo. "Oh!" Bondachuk gasped and rolled his eyes as if he was in great pain. "Do you realize what you have done?" "What do you mean?" asked Danillo. "What have I done?" "Why, you have devoured 300 eggs. If my wife would have put those eggs under brood hens, they would have hatched into 300 chicks. Those 300 chicks would have grown into 300 hens that would have laid 1,000 more eggs. Those 1,000 eggs would have hatched into 1,000 chicks. I could have sold those 1,000 chicks at the market for quite a sack of money. So you see, you, Danillo, you have cost me a sack of money. Why, if I take you to court, the judge will make you work for me for at least another year." Danillo listened to that tirade, and when it was over, he said, "Have it your way, you cheat. But I'll not work for you, not for another minute." And with that, he stamped his foot, turned around, and walked out the door. But when he had cooled down, he fell into despair. Oj Bože, što zі мною буде? What is to become of me? How could he possibly win in court against a rich man? As he wandered the roads aimlessly, he came upon an old Hutzel, a mountain dweller. "What troubles you, my friend?" said the old man. Now this Hutzel was not only old, he was wise, and in his pocket he carried a blue mirror, and in it he could see where the rabbits slept, and how the stars fell into the sea, and what made the sun smile. He understood the languages of trees, and why the moon spread her skirts of melancholy over the hills. Danillo told him the whole story, and he finished off by saying, "So you see, Bondachuk has me for good. I worked for him for an entire year, and now he's taking me to court. A rich man's greed knows no bounds," said the Hutzel. "So you mean there's no hope?" replied Danillo. "Might makes right, and beggars can't be choosers. The judge is a learned man, but in my mirror he would see nothing." And with that he pulled out his mirror, and he gazed up into the sky and down to the ground and around to the forests and the mountains. And then he smiled and motioned for Danillo to come closer, and he whispered something in Danillo's ear. Danillo nodded and smiled and went on his way. The day of the trial arrived. Bondachuk walked into the courtroom strutting like a peacock, wearing a fine velvet suit. The judge and the clerk took their places, and they waited for Danillo. They waited. Minutes turned into hours. Bondachuk began tugging at his mustache. "Where is that fool?" The judge looked at his watch, and the clerk tapped his fingers nervously on the desk. Finally, when they were just about to give up, the door to the courtroom burst open, and in walked Danillo, heaving and panting. "Excuse me, Your Honor," he said, "but I have been very busy." "What do you mean?" said the judge. "What do you mean, busy?" "Well, I was busy boiling potatoes and planting them, boiling barley and planting it, boiling oats and planting them." "Wait a minute," said the judge. "You can't get a crop from boiled potatoes or boiled barley." "Well, surely I can," replied Danilo. "Just as surely as Bondachuk says he could get 1,000 chicks from the boiled eggs that his wife fed me." The judge looked at Bondachuk. "What kind of eggs did your wife give, Danilo?" Boiled eggs," stuttered Bondachuk. The judge looked at the clerk, and then at Danilo, and then at Bondachuk, and he began to laugh. And then the clerk began to laugh, and Danilo began to laugh, but Bondachuk did not laugh. He stood there looking bewildered, tugging at his mustache, and then he grabbed his coat and hat, and he walked out of the court. And as his carriage clattered away, he could still hear them laughing. But that was the last time the rich man tried to take a peasant to court. Agricultural themes are quite common in Ukrainian folk tales. Many of the Ukrainians who came to Canada in the early 1900s were farmers, and they came at the invitation of the then Minister of the Interior, Clifford Sifton, who praised these stalwart peasants in sheepskin coats. However, that reference to men in sheepskin coats soon became a derogatory term, as the newcomers were looked on with suspicion by the established population. And it didn't take long before the immigrants began to encounter men like the Bondachuk in the story of the stolen pistolet. My father came to Canada in 1930 and worked for farmers during the difficult years of drought and depression. One year my father tried to earn a little bit of extra money by catching the gophers that would cause great devastation to the crops. He was disappointed, though, that the farmer he worked for wanted to deny him even that. It was a story he often told me, so one day I decided to write it down, and it came out in the form of a poem. Here it is. "Sure can do a lot of damage to the crops, those gophers," said Mr. Nicholson, sipping tea. Farmer with a reputation. Had 20,000 in the bank. 1934 is going to be a bad year for them, they say. Municipalities paying 1 cent apiece. Mike nodded. Immigrant hired 7 months for $100. Up at 5, Mike fed horses, milked cows, set out poison in the fields, plowed, planted, fed pigs. Sunset late on spring days. Gathered up dead gophers, cut tails and hind feet for proof, put them in a box. Up at 5, Mike fed horses, milked cows, set out poison in the fields, plowed, planted, fed pigs, gathered up dead gophers, cut tails and hind feet, added them to the box. No chance to cash them in. "Mr. Nicholson, you going to town? How about you take my gophers?" "Sure, Mike." Returning in his wagon, Mr. Nicholson holds out $2.37. "Mike, you got those gophers from my farm. You work for me. My daughter wants a coat. How about I keep $1? "Sure, Mr. Nicholson, sure." If he had a daughter, he'd rather she wear sheepskin than rodent.
Приїхали ми у незнану країну, покинули свій рідний край і родину. Все, що нам близьке до серця було, залишили ми тільки мріями живемо. Канадо, Канадо, ти країна казки прийняла до серця нас, як рідна мати. Все, що нам близьке до серця було, залишили ми тільки мріями живемо. Нелегко нам було на чужині жити, мову й закони мусили навчитись. Працювали ми тяжко, як вдень, так вночі, щоб діточки наші не знали біди. Канадо, Канадо, ти країна казки прийняла до серця нас, як рідна мати.
Beyond the Blue Mirror is a series of programs that celebrates the rich Ukrainian oral tradition. I would like to acknowledge the support of the Canada Council for the Arts. Je remercie de son soutien le Conseil des Arts du Canada. I would also like to thank Ethnic FM CKER Radio for the Roger Charest Senior Award for Broadcast and Media Arts, administered through the Ukrainian Resource and Development Center at Grant MacEwan College in Edmonton. The folk tale in this program is based on The Stolen Pustolet and the Boiled Eggs from the book The Magic Egg and Other Tales from Ukraine, retold by Barbara J. Suin and edited by Natalie O. Kononenko. Copyright 1997 by Libraries Unlimited Incorporated. Used with the permission of Greenwood Publishing Group, Westport, Connecticut. The poem Spring Harvest is based on the recollections of my father, Mike Mikolenko. My gratitude to him for allowing me to share it with you. Introductory music for this series is taken from Dance 5 from the CD Prairie Nights and Peacock Feathers, performed by Paris Tukeu, distributed by Olesha Records. This program also features excerpts from Hutsal Fantasy from the CD Ablaze, performed by Vasyl Popodyuk, and the original composition Kraina Kazke from the CD Reflections of Our Pioneers, performed by Duet Marena. I'm Linda Mikolenko. You may reach me through my website, lindathestoryteller.ca. Thank you for listening.
Калина, малина, чого ж ти не цвітеш? Чого ж ти, козаче, до мене не йдеш? Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Чого ж ти, козаче, до мене не йдеш? Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Чого ж ти, козаче, до мене не йдеш? Чого ж ти до мене учора не прийшов? Зайшов на крилечко, так дощик пішов. Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Зайшов на крилечко, так дощик пішов. Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Зайшов на крилечко, так дощик пішов. Обдуриш, козаче, ти батька свого. Я вчора гуляла, дощу не було. Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Я вчора гуляла, дощу не було. Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Я вчора гуляла, дощу не було. Обдуриш, козаче, і матір свою. Я вчора проводив подружку мою. Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Ти вчора проводив подружку мою. Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Ти вчора проводив подружку мою. Калина, малина, чого ж ти не цвітеш? Чого ж ти, козаче, до мене не йдеш? Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Чого ж ти, козаче, до мене не йдеш? Раз, два, тітарі-та, раз, та, два. Чого ж ти, козаче, до мене не йдеш?
And Ukrainian girl group Rozhanetsia with traditional Ukrainian folk song Kalena Malena. And before them, the Playboy Band from Edmonton and the traditional Ukrainian woodcutters dance from the Hutsul region, the Arakan. You've been listening to Nash Holos Ukrainian Roots Radio, our flagship show in Vancouver, which comes to you Saturdays from 6 to 7 p.m. here on AM 1320 CHMB on the radio dial and online at am1320.com, as well in international syndication on PCJ Radio International. In between broadcasts, please visit us online at www.nashholos.com, where you'll find transcripts and archived audio files, information about the show, as well as the podcast feed. And there's a link to our Patreon site there where you can support our work if you like, and that is www.nashholos.com. На жаль, ми вже скінчили нашу програму, ще час додому і сказати до побачення, але перед тим я хочу залишити вас такими словами мудрості. Часом брехня збудить усе село. And our proverb of the week translates as, sometimes a lie will excite the entire village. Well, that brings us to about the end of our program, so one last tune for you, the Canadian Rhythm Masters from Winnipeg with the Great Plains Kolomeka. I'm Paulina, on behalf of all of us here at Nash Holos and AM 1320. Thanks for listening, and dobranich! Hi, I hope you enjoyed this edition of the show. If you're not yet a Patreon supporter of Nash Holos, I hope you'll consider becoming one today, with the digital equivalent of a cup of coffee once or twice a month, or maybe even a snack or a meal. There's an option for every budget, and even $1 a month tells me you value the show and my efforts to produce and bring it to you. Becoming a Patreon supporter will give you the opportunity to provide feedback to help improve the show, create cool swag to promote it, and swap ideas on how to promote Ukrainian culture in between broadcasts and podcasts. Your contribution will also help to preserve a well-established on-air and online venue of almost 30 years running to continue promoting Ukrainian culture and heritage long after I've retired, which will happen sooner rather than later. Your contribution will help that transition happen, and future generations will be able to enjoy the music and other Nash Holos programming that you currently do. To become a Patreon supporter, just go to www.patreon.com and search for Nash Holos. That's patron with an E, spelled Patreon. Or go to www.nashholos.com and click on the orange Patreon button on any page there. Thank you for listening and for your support. Щиро дякую.